Welcome to the fifth reading of the catalogue essay that accompanies an exhibition titled A Letter to Danila, What You Hope For Through Your Lifetime. And that's the title as well of the essay that I've been reading the last few days. The exhibition is an homage to the life and work of Danila Vasiliev, and it's on at Mars Gallery in Melbourne through October, perhaps into November. I will read you some more today, and I ended yesterday with these two sentences. What were these strangely awkward creatures doing in my studio, and who was responsible for their existence, for their unappealing nature? And I go on. For a moment, their awkward ugliness, which had not been apparent to me during their making, suddenly asserted its undoubted presence, only to very slowly subside with the passing of time, and then rise again. But the truth is, I've never been interested in the forms that have manifested as outcomes to my questioning, only in whatever authenticity I have managed to maintain through the questioning process itself. As a corollary, I have reasoned that if my inquiry is generated by a deep and genuine curiosity, then the forms that most accurately reflect that process will make themselves. After all, who am I to question them? I'm simply the artist, or rather my preferred term, apocalyptist, unveiler of hitherto invisible forms. And as such, I'm only responsible for maintaining the correct ethical parameters of the questioning process each project demands of me. None of the forms that might manifest in response to my questions are really any of my business. I must reveal to you, Danila, that a constant companion through the making of my homage has been Italo Calvino's 6 Memos for the Next Millennium, and particularly the last chapter titled Multiplicity. On page 118, he quotes Paul Valery: "I have sought, I'm searching, and I will search for what I call the total phenomenon, that is, the totality of conscience, relations, conditions, and impossibilities." He speaks of many others who have also embraced the idea that the most profitable response to describing what is might be the one defined through the mandala of multiplicity. He offers us many examples in the writings of Dante, Thomas Mann, Georges Perec, Maurice Merleau-Ponty, Raymond Queneau, Jorge Luis Borges, Ovid, and James Joyce. Encouraged and comforted by such examples since my early 20s, including those of Elizabeth Groh, Hélène Cixous, and Luce Irigaray, I long ago embraced with gusto the mapless, directionless, unsignposted rhizome I found myself journeying. Danila, forgive me this aside, but I must confess that I have long deeply desired to be as quixotic as you have been. All my life, as I have made work, either in my studio or conceived of it in my head, I have attempted to purposefully seek what some may term disaster, perhaps even to court failure by identifying possible knots and difficulties as the first step of any project, forcibly turning myself away from the urge to seek balance and completion, because I believe that the sum of more troubling insights, even if seemingly peripheral, might result in a meaning more foreign and so more challenging. Have I ever succeeded in my attempt to effectively turn away from the urge to indulge in what has often come easily to me, and then as a result to unfulfill my innate good taste? I'm not sure. Perhaps I have, perhaps I haven't. I certainly could never claim that my practice has attained or ever attempted to a visually recognisable form or style, as it was termed during your time. Yet, paradoxically, I could most certainly argue that its underlying line of inquiry has been mostly informed by one single question, which could be effectively reduced to, who is it that says I? In other words, who is the artist? I have attempted to facilitate this ongoing question by a constant effort to blur the boundary that separates visible from invisible, even seeking to visibilize the invisible, which includes not only what is never seen, but also what is never legitimized as even existing, visible or not. Can I put it this way, Danila? As we consider these questions, the path we journey on suddenly forks, and we are faced with a choice. Which branch shall we take? The first clearly signposted branch directly leads to the garden of the known. Its many well-lit entrances are always open, its well-trodden pathways shady in summer and sunny in winter, its seating arranged in regular patterns, facilitating the best possible viewing of its many treasures, its fountains refreshingly cool and surrounded by plentiful and familiarly fragrant flora. This is the garden most of us seek in order to enjoy the solace of the comfortingly familiar. The second branch is scrubby and unkempt and is not signposted at all. Its many bends and detours finally lead us to the garden of the unknown, indistinguishable at first from the rest of the forlorn continuum we journey upon, overrun as it is with weeds and scraps. One enters it through a secret opening that's almost impossible to find in the seamless, ragged hedge that surrounds it. Yet no matter how discomforting its broken down appearance might seem, once we can make our way inside, our innocence is seemingly somehow restored, and our desire to question, search, and explore is reinvigorated. But this branch leads to constant uncertainty, even if we are eventually able to locate its well-concealed entrance. And once inside, is it possible to ever recognize its true nature? And should such recognition indeed miraculously occur, will we be able to successfully resist the overwhelming urge to flee from the challenging tasks it demands of us? Perhaps, Danila, simply entering the garden of the unknown and confronting the many illusory pathways that appear and then suddenly vanish might well constitute the entirety of my homage to you. And if I can remain clear-eyed for long enough while I journey its pathways, then what might have seemed ugly to me, or perhaps simply unmeaningful, might suddenly gain new meaning, new value. Concepts such as right, wrong, beautiful, and ugly might then dissolve, much in the way time does. What ultimately remains as the residue of such a journey is meaning, at times seemingly illogical or even irrational when compared to previous concepts of such a word, but somehow abundantly, richly, and unmistakably palpable. Pardon me, Danila, for these moments of self-reflection when it's your life and practice I mean to focus on, but somehow through such reflections, the rhizome seems to trace its way to many unexpected considerations and conclusions that, even if I take into account my endemic perceptual fragility, I still find bewildering and so impossible to refute. And there I'll end today.